I'm going to speak of self-love and devotion. And the way I'm going to speak of self-love is not in derogatory terms, because self-love is the human condition, and you can't help but be involved in the human condition until, by grace, you rise above the human condition into another place of higher intelligence, which is only swifter intelligence. And each of you is more intelligent than you were, say, 10 years ago. So I'm not saying that any of you is not intelligent, because you'd have to have some degree of the intelligence I'm speaking about to be here. Otherwise you would walk out. And otherwise, if everyone was intelligent as you are, then we wouldn't be able to fit everybody in the whole university, would we? But life's not like that. According to our intelligence, we attract our friends, and we attract our teachers. And as soon as our intelligence speeds up sufficiently, we leave that particular teacher and go to a teacher who is more intelligent or demonstrates a greater intelligence to our newly more swift intelligence. And so life is supposed to, by this very progression, we're supposed to be more and more intelligent. That's the whole purpose of life. I don't know what you thought the purpose of life was, but that's the purpose of life, is to become more and more intelligent. So according to the intelligence that you are, you select a partner, you select a job, and you select a teacher. You might think that you select, but your intelligence motivates you towards a similar intelligence, or one in partnership, say, or in job, or in anything that is guaranteed to increase your intelligence if only you're intelligent enough to surrender. But so often, because of the human condition that we are, we try to fight it. And when you fight something, you take a position and you have to use force. And so as soon as you take a position, the other party or the other object also takes a position and force, and you experience the human condition, which is frustration, disappointment, and unhappiness. Now, self-love. Self-love is demonstrated in your own experience, because I like to demonstrate everything in your experience. That's why you've got to be a certain amount of intelligence to be here, so that I can demonstrate it in your intelligence, in your experience. Self-love is in your experience is when you are emotional. Now the whole world gets emotional, because that's part of the human condition that humanity has to pass through. And emotion is like a tunnel that humanity's been passing through for many, well, probably thousands of years. And we have the opportunity to pass through that tunnel and come out the other side, out the emotional tunnel. It's still very rare for anyone to come out of the emotional tunnel into a place of easiness and super intelligence. Let's say the word super just to demonstrate a higher intelligence. Super intelligent, because when you come through the tunnel of emotion, which people have been going through for thousands of years, you are then what we could call super intelligent compared with the normal human intelligence. And that is possible now, because I, for one, as you know, I don't know how many other teachers teach it, but I only know this teacher, this truth, and I endeavour to free people of their attachment to emotion, because emotion is yourself. And the more that you get emotional and allow it to happen, that is a form of self-love. For you love your emotion. If you didn't love it, you wouldn't have it. So you don't have anything that you don't love, do you? Of course you don't. You might use the word like. You don't have anything that you don't like if you can avoid it. Well, you love your emotion. You love yourself when you get emotional. So just to demonstrate what emotion is in your own experience: anger, fear, self-doubt, frustration, blaming and accusing others, jealousy, resentment towards anyone or anything. So you get the picture of what humanity is and its emotions, don't you? Because that's a very intelligent statement that I just made. And I trust you receive it. It's not an accusation of you. It's just the way things are. And the whole purpose of being with a spiritual master, a master being someone who has realized the truth of love, life, truth, death and God, so therefore has realized the truth of everything, is to become more intelligent and to pass through the tunnel of emotion. Because it requires great intelligence to do that. Now, you okay with that? Have you heard me? You see, your personal viewpoint doesn't matter that much. As a matter of fact, your personal viewpoint is emotional, right? So that's the very thing that we're trying to get rid of, is your personal viewpoint. So that you only see the fact. When you only see the fact, you cannot get emotional. Are you hearing me, please? When you see the fact, that is how a thing is, you can't get emotional about it. You can't get emotional about this table unless you say, I want that table. That want is a demonstration of emotion, of going out to the table and wanting to possess it. And therefore you will take actions from your emotional choice to want this table, to go and offer prices for it or do anything to get it. That is a demonstration of wanting. That's not a fact. Table's not for sale. But you get the point. When you want anything, you're emotional. So that's self-love. To want anything. Because the person next to you doesn't want the table. So it's quite personal, you're wanting. And you want to be with this woman or this man, and the person next to you doesn't want to be with that woman or that man. So your want is personal. And that's emotion. And you can think that you're not emotional, but I'm telling you that that's emotion, to want anything. But you can do everything without wanting. That's the amazing thing. And the human race doesn't appreciate that. You can hear that from some of the questions that we get into that area. How do I operate without wanting? How do I operate without need of goals? How do I operate without setting goals for myself? Yeah. Well, you just do as you're moved to do, and do your best. You don't have to want to win a gold medal if you're an athlete and in that position. You just do your training if you're moved to do your training. If you're interested in anything, of course you train for it and you do it. You're interested because you delight in it. And then you all line up and you do what you love doing, which was your training. You must have loved it. If you didn't love it, then you're emotional about it. If you just love it, then you do your best. And if you happen to win a gold medal, you say, oh, yeah, that's good. That's good. Thank you very much. Yeah. But you didn't want it. You knew it's a prize of some recognition of the skill, the talent that you've been given by the great God. But that's all right. Thank you. That is good. So you don't share in the competing. When you compete, you take a position and you exclude yourself from the others to compete. In anything. In an exam, when you're competing in an exam, you're excluding yourself in some way or other, and therefore that's self-love. But you can do your best and see the result in the end. You see, there's no need for this stress and strain that we all go through emotionally. The stress and strain to win and gain. My goodness. Look how much you've won. Look how much you've gained. Look how much you've gained. You're pretty well. You're pretty healthy. You got enough money to last you probably a month, or you could possibly get through for 6 months. You've got a home or a house somewhere, rented accommodation, or you own it. I mean, you've done pretty well. You've probably got a motor car somewhere. And you probably have a job. Or if you don't have a job, it's because you don't want a job. Fair enough. But look at all you've gained. That's the beginning of breaking with self-love. To see all that I have gained, all that I have won, as it were, through just living. Without having to compete. It's just happened. Oh, I know you're the doer. We are all the doers, such as Barry Long is the doer here speaking. He's the doer of that which comes naturally. But he's the doer. You're the doer. You're the doer of your job. But the gain comes naturally. And you're the doer. But we make such a mess of having to be the doer. We get frustrated. We get unhappy with having to be the doer. But you can't stop it. You've got to be the doer. You can resign your job. That's all right. Then you can go home and worry about your money. That's doing. And then you can go looking for other work, and that's doing. Or you can go on the dole, and that's doing. And being on the dole is such boredom that's doing. Boredom is doing. You know. You and I are the doers here. to make a problem of it makes the doer emotional. Because we're just doers here. And if you look at it very closely, it's not you who animates your body, who allows it to walk around, who allows your hair to grow, right? Who allows your skin to be replaced and healed. You have nothing to do with that. That is done by something else that doesn't compete. As a matter of fact, your emotion often competes with that healing process. And that healing process, of course, is life, which animates your body. And I can tell you now that it is life that is responsible for everything you have gained, everything that you have won. You are simply an expression of life. When you are emotional, though, and upsetting yourself and the world, you are an expression of the human condition. And you'll see that most people that you know, as well as yourself, are in the human condition to more or less degree. So you love your emotion, you love yourself. You won't give it up. Well, what am I asking you to give up? I'm asking you not to get angry, ever. Not just next time, ever. And not to get resentful, ever. Not to be self-doubtful, ever. Well, of course, you can't do that. You can't jump from the human condition. You've just got to gradually shed it. And the best way to shed it in the first instance is to understand it. Because every time you are angry, it means that you want something that you can't have, you want something that someone else has that you want can't get, or you want the impossible. So why get angry about it? Why don't you see what you can do? Look instead of thinking, because as soon as you think about it, you get more angry. And then when you think about what others have done to you, oh my God. When you lie in your bed or sit there and with associated thinking, someone reminds you of the past or something, and you think about what somebody did to you. Oh, you could never forgive them. And all this rubbish. You are loving yourself. How dare you have to forgive somebody? How dare you? Why did you need to forgive them anyway? Because you were resentful. Because you blamed them for what happened to you. And what happened to you was your doing, your emotional doing. You do everything that happens to you, no matter what somebody apparently does to you. You are doing it. Because your emotion attracts the same sort of emotion in a different form. And so all you're battling with is yourself. But of course, we don't address these sort of things, do we? We're too clever, and the computer can't explain that. So self-love. And the other part of self-love is thinking. And I told you this is not a derogatory sense. I'm only showing you in self-knowledge, which leads to freedom. The other thing that we love is our memory. We really are attached to our memory in the human condition. attached, which means emotionally almost violent towards the reality of our memory. Almost violent about how it. But when we're not violent about our attachment to our memory, we just let the memory tick over, because it's ourself, you see, the memory. And so we think aimlessly. We wait at the bus stop and into this beautiful trance of associative thinking, aimless thinking. One thought leads to another, with no power, not sufficient self-knowledge to stop it and to see with the senses, which immediately stops thinking. So people write to me and ask me, how do I stop thinking? I got a tape over there about it. I say it from every angle I possibly can. You stop thinking by being in your senses. Because when you're in your senses, you can't think. I mean, do you get that? I didn't say it was easy. I said it was simple, right? When you're in your senses, you cannot think. So if you're just seeing, and you're just hearing what is, and you're seeing what is, and you're smelling what is, and tasting what is, if there's anything there at all, then you are in your senses. But if you're thinking, you are loving yourself, because every thought as a continuity in any sense is self. So there we have self-love. Everybody thinks and everybody's emotional. And if they're not emotional, they suppress their emotions. And as soon as you suppress your emotions, you lose the sensation of love. If you're loving a woman, if you've got suppression in you, you don't have the same sensation of pleasure, because you've got suppression in you. And you can't just think that you suppress your emotions and a memory, because as soon as you do that, you suppress everything. You suppress the good with the bad, but you don't know that because you're in the human condition of ignorance. As soon as you suppress anything, you suppress also the good and the pleasure in you. And so woman, through continuously suppression, or putting up with unhappiness, loses the feeling, the sense of pleasure in her vagina to a degree. And the man loses the sense of real pleasure and then becomes just a sex machine. And a sex machine only has self-love in it and not true pleasure. So I trust you're getting the message, right? Now, devotion. Devotion is the way of being free from the human condition. It is a surefire way, a certainty of getting free more from the human condition. Devotion. Now, if we're talking about the religious devotion, we are in the human condition. Devotion to Jesus, devotion to God, devotion, all this ceremonial stuff, devotion. I am a devotee of Krishna, I am a devotee of Jesus, a devotee of Islam or something. You are in the human condition. That's not devotion. Devotion is love plus action. Right? devotion is love plus action. But action suggests some personal activity, doesn't it? Personal action. You take action. I take action. Personal. You're not taking action. I'm taking action. So action is a bit personal. So we could say that we say that devotion is love plus activity. Now, activity is a generic of action, and it's much better than action. Activity. Because you cannot avoid activity in this existence. So the generic is got far less self in it than action. Because we're used to taking action about everything. Everything. But activity, there's activity going on now. The generic of activity. The heart's beating, the body's breathing, the clock's ticking. Everyone imperceptibly is getting older. There's activity, a great deal of activity going on. So love and devotion is love plus activity. Now, let's translate this activity into your experience so that you can know what devotion is. So I'm going to give you something to do, which we all like to do because that's the idea of yoga, you know. You think you're doing something spiritual and all this stuff. As long as you've got something to do, you think you're doing something. Well, I'm going to give you something to do that's real. And will take you away from the doing into a greater intelligence and more out of the human condition. Now, first of all, to even be here, to even be in front of me now, in the vast majority of cases here, you have to have some love of something greater than yourself. A love of something greater than yourself brought you here. Although you came here, it was because of the love of something greater than yourself. Now, I'd like you to see whether that's true or not. Because it doesn't mean that everybody came here. In some cases, you know, men come here to be with me because their wife or partner wants to come. And sometimes the wife or partner comes because the man they love wants to come. And sometimes people just come and really would say, well, I don't know why I've come, or I have no choice but to come. But I want you to have a look more at this, and take responsibility for coming. I want you to see behind this, I have no choice, or I don't know what brought me here, but I'm here. I want you to see really that there is inside of you a love of something greater than yourself, greater than the thinker, greater of the imaginer, greater than the emotion in you. I want you to see that in your own experience now. It's as clear as the space between you and me. It's not that you had no choice, it's that you love something that's greater than yourself. Is that true or is that false? We've got to get down to it's either black or it's white. The whole human race loves grey. And I have no grey in my teaching, and I have no grey in myself. It's either true or it's false. Nothing in between. Now, is it true that it wasn't that you had no choice or that you just came? It's because somewhere inside that body there is a love of something greater than yourself. And the answer is yes. But then you need intelligence to see it. Even though I tell you it's there, that's not good enough. You have to see it. You're the one that has to see it. You have love of something greater than yourself in you. No matter how faint it is, the first step is to see that. Some of you have a love of this something that is greater than yourself, a greater love of that. Some of you have a deep love of that. You all have this love in you, but it's a matter of what the world calls consciousness, whether you can see it or not. But I call it intelligence. Whether you've got the intelligence, the swiftness of intelligence, to separate it from your emotional wantings, so that you see, I love something greater than myself, greater than anything myself can name. Is that true? Right. And that thing you cannot name, therefore it's nothing to speak of. And hence arises the word God, the real God. Not the Jesus God, not the Allah God, but the real God inside of you. That cannot be named because you love something that's greater than yourself. Now, but if you think, you'll lose it. But all the same, it still brought you here. So you have love in your body of something that's inexpressible, that has an enormous power behind the scenes, behind yourself, that actually brought you here, or got you to find the money, got you to make all the arrangements, because you're the doer, got you to do all those things, but something got you to do it. Because you don't get anything here. All you get here is the truth, and the truth can't be remembered. And so what are you doing here if you want to get something? You're not going to get anything at all. You're just going to get the exposure that you love something that is greater than yourself. So I'm assuming now that you have the knowledge of that at this moment. Knowledge being love. Emotion being feelings. This is not a feeling. This is knowledge. Knowledge of what? I don't know. I don't know. Right. I just love it. So that's the love part, which is within you. No denying it. You cannot deny it unless you really want to be ignorant of your own love. But you can't be, because it brought you here. So that's the love part. What about the activity, Barry? Because only love plus activity is devotion. And if you're not devotional, if you're not really devotional, you're just loving, and loving's not enough. You have to be devotional. And so, let's get on with the activity. Now close the eyes, please. Don't get into any meditative stance or trance or anything. Just close the eyes wherever you are. Now, as you have this love inside of you, if you relax as much as you can, and you don't know what it is that you're loving, but you know that the love's there, why don't you inside be truthful for what is inside of you, and without saying a word and without speaking anything, just say, I love you. Over and over. Now you haven't got any object to love because we've already seen that you love something that's beyond words. But you're not doing enough of the activity to make you devotional in the true sense of devotion. You're not saying enough inside without words, without moving your throat. I love you. Thank you. I love you. Thank you. Now, in the first instance, although you're not using words, for a while you are likely to use your throat as a sort of mouthing of the words without using the tongue. I understand that, and that's all right. Because that's the first thing that happens when you don't open your mouth and use your tongue to speak. The throat moves autonomously to say, I love you. But as you practice this, walking around the place, at breakfast, at bed at night, at every opportunity, I love you, without words, without saying it. You do not say it. And if your throat says it without words, says the words by movement, that's all right to start with. Because eventually you'll be able to just have the activity of I love you. Thank you. I love you. Thank you. Now you have no object and no thought, because if you have an object or a thought, that's yourself you're loving. And if you have any emotion attached to it, you emotionalize this love, you are loving yourself. And this is not yourself. This is the inexplicable mystery of your love. Eventually, to start with, you might have this saying I love you in the throat. It might also coincide with some part of your body where it seems to be saying it. But that's only in the beginning. Eventually, the whole of what appears to be the body is saying it without words, or without any contraction in the throat, It is just there. I love you. Thank you. I just love you. I don't know who you are. I don't know what you are. I don't care. I just love you. Now you have the love and you have the activity, which is devotion, the beginning of true devotion. You're not going in front of some cross, some disgraceful cross with some man in agony hanging from it, and saying you love him. You are doing this inside your own cross, which is your mind and emotions and all your false notions. You are doing this in the only place of purity where you love that which brought you here anyway. I love you. I don't know what you are and I don't care. This is all an impulse from within the whole body. I have to use the words to give you the idea of it. But the words are not it. It is the activity inside of sheer acknowledgement. Sheer meaning straightforward, unadulterated acknowledgement of the love of something you cannot explain or wish to explain. You are then devoted and devotional, only then. And there is no priest between you and your love. For what you are loving is the unnameable mystery called God. And then you will find your body saying this devotion which is beyond your mind and emotions. It might just be saying, love, love, love. It might even say, wonder, wonder, beauty, beauty. For these are all words of devotion, true devotion to that which cannot be described and is only in your experience, not in the experience of the one next to you. You are the only one, because nobody can describe it to you. It is yours and yours alone. But such devotion will make you more intelligent, purify you, so that when you are doing anything or speaking anything, you are likely to be of more assistance to your fellow man in whatever you do, without trying. Because in this devotion gets rid of the person, because you're loving something. The person loves itself and its living life, whereas this is love of something greater than the person. Now, don't get tired of it, and don't think that you're just acting it out. You have to act it out, because you acted your whole emotional life out, and now you've got to reverse your attachment to yourself, your thoughts and emotions, and so you act this out if you have to, because you are connecting with something that is real. And if you act it out often enough, one day you will say, my God, I'm not acting. This is it. I truly love this that is unnameable. If you start to think, open the eyes and look at the speaker, and then start again. Because you have to come to your senses to be able to start. Because your senses are not yourself. Now, still being grateful and thankful for that which cannot be named, energetically, meaning actively inside of you, open the eyes. And with the eyes open, it's very easy to do. The senses don't interfere. It is the mind that reacts to what the senses are seeing or hearing, and then interprets all that keeps the mind busy. And then you cannot be grateful or thankful really from this place within that I am speaking of. And you've got to be easy, because when you love something, when you're truly devotional, you're easy. There's nothing like love to make one easy. And there's certainly nothing like devotion to make one in a constant state of loving activity, which is that within. And then the more that you are able to make yourself intelligent this way, the more you can be loving in the world. But if you try to be loving in the world without loving the unnameable first, and actively, it won't last. Because it's not coming from the right source. This is the love of the source. Your source, my source, the source of the whole wide earth and world. This is the loving of that. But if you get busy in the world, and therefore with your mind or emotions, you'll forget to do this. But when tragedy strikes, the first thing you'll do is say, God help me. But then if you're always acknowledging God as a continuous state of activity within, God will be helping you every moment of your life, and you will know that. It's only our interruption of that that makes us then ask God to help us. Just love that unnameable, as I have endeavored to impart to you, remembering that there are different degrees of intelligence present here and present in every audience or group. But you, because you are here, have a degree of intelligence that makes it possible for you to do this really, not as a forceful action, but as an easy, natural expression of your great, wonderful love of the unnameable. That is love. This state, the ability or the capability to do this really arises from your everyday gratitude for what you have, what you've gained, what you won, or what you are. Gratitude for that comes before you, really before you can do this, really. In other words, what I was saying was the quick way to be enlightened, to acknowledge the good. Not just the good in the flowers around you and the nature, but in the good in your life. Because myself always wants to acknowledge the problems in my life. Whereas the problems are not real. They're only true for now. Whereas this is true forever. This devotional wonder of loving that which cannot be named. But of course, unintelligence, because we are so emotional in the human condition, we have, and such thoughtful people, that we have to have an object to love. We don't have the intelligence, the directness to be able to love direct, the source of love. So religions have to go through images. The images become priests between you and the unnameable. And so you have to have images which the mind will always construct in any religion. But I am not a religionist. I believe in nothing. So don't look for me for images. I ask you to be true to your love. A greater love than the love of any object that you think you love, including your children. This is the source of your love of your children. This is the source of your love of your partner. You must love the source first, before the object. Otherwise, you will know pain, frustration, disappointment, or disenchantment. When you love the source of love first, as I have endeavoured to impart to you how to do that in the first instance, all problems disappear. Your life becomes harmonious. Not just one aspect of it, but all of it. For you are then in harmony with the source of it all. So practice this as often as you can. For eventually, through the practice, it becomes a subconscious and then an unconscious, but a highly intelligent, continuous state of being.